In the vast, silent stretches of space, where stars twinkled like distant fireflies, humans had always looked up in wonder. For centuries, people had imagined that somewhere out there, beyond the planets and galaxies, life existed, life that was intelligent, curious, and perhaps as eager to explore as humans were. Yet, despite decades of sending satellites, rovers, and messages into the void, no one had ever received a reply. Space was a vast emptiness, cold and quiet, and humanity had almost come to accept it as their own lonely frontier. That is, until the signal appeared. It started quietly, almost innocuously, on a routine night in a small observatory tucked in the outskirts of a quiet town. The observatory wasn't one of the giant world-famous facilities. It was modest, staffed by a handful of passionate astronomers who spent their nights staring at the stars, looking for anything unusual. Their lives were filled with long hours of recording data, analyzing tiny fluctuations in signals from distant stars, and meticulously comparing them to patterns they had catalogued over decades. Most of the time it was routine work, predictable, technical, and far removed from the excitement most people imagined when they thought about space. But that night, something unusual happened. A faint signal appeared on their monitors, something unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't random static or a natural cosmic phenomenon. It had a pattern, a rhythm that suggested intelligence. The team immediately leaned closer, their faces lit by the soft glow of computer screens. Their hearts raced as they realized the implications. This wasn't a message from another satellite or a glitch in their equipment. This was something far away, something sent with intention. As they worked to decode the signal, the patterns began to reveal themselves. It was an SOS, a distress call. The realization sent a mix of fear and excitement coursing through the small team. If this truly was an alien vessel calling for help, it was the first direct proof that humans were not alone in the universe. The team could hardly believe it. They had spent years searching for any sign of life, running simulations and scanning the skies. And now, suddenly, here it was right in front of them. But with excitement came a heavy weight of responsibility. An SOS implied urgency, desperation, and vulnerability. It demanded a response, yet nobody knew what kind of response would be safe. News of the signal spread quickly, first among scientific circles and then to governments and space agencies around the world. Debates erupted immediately. Should humanity respond? Was it safe to send a message back, or could it attract danger? What if the distress call was a trap, a clever ruse designed to lure humans into a conflict they could not possibly win? Experts argued endlessly over protocols, ethical considerations, and the potential risks. Some warned that even attempting contact could expose Earth to threats that no one could imagine. Others insisted that helping another intelligent species in distress was not only a moral obligation, but a chance to make history. The signal itself was mysterious. It came from a region of space far beyond the nearest stars, in a sector where no known human probe had ever reached. The coordinates suggested a ship that had been traveling for an unimaginable distance, carrying technology far superior to anything on Earth. Yet, it was stranded, sending out a plea for help with hope that someone, anyone, might respond. Scientists and engineers examined every aspect of the transmission, the energy patterns, the repetition sequences, even the faint fluctuations that could indicate a damaged communication system. It was meticulous, painstaking work, but the more they studied it, the more convinced they became that this was not a hoax, not an error, and certainly not a natural phenomenon. The world outside the observatory reacted with a mixture of wonder and anxiety. Media outlets broadcast theories and speculations non-stop. Headlines ranged from humanity's first contact to alien threat looms. People everywhere looked up at the night sky with a renewed sense of curiosity and trepidation. In classrooms, students debated the implications of intelligent life beyond Earth. Families gathered on rooftops and in backyards to peer at the stars, wondering if they were looking in the right direction, wondering if they might glimpse the distant vessel that had sent its desperate call. For the first time in decades, space felt close, immediate, and alive with possibility. Meanwhile, back at the observatory, the team worked tirelessly. Sleep became a luxury as they coordinated with other observatories, space agencies, and even amateur radio operators across the globe. They tried to triangulate the position of the ship with extreme precision, hoping to understand not just where it was, but also how much danger it might be in. They considered sending robotic drones, unmanned spacecraft, or carefully crafted messages in return. Every decision had potential consequences, not just for themselves, but for the entire planet. The weight of that responsibility was enormous. In those long, quiet hours, the astronomers reflected on what this signal meant for humanity. For centuries, humans had gazed at the stars and dreamed of adventure, exploration, and discovery. Yet, this was no mere exploration. It was an encounter with another species that was real, vulnerable, and reaching out. Humanity had imagined first contact in books, movies, and science fiction, but now it was a reality. The enormity of the moment was almost paralyzing. Would humans respond with caution or curiosity, fear or compassion? And how would the aliens judge humanity in return? The world governance began to mobilize cautiously. Secret meetings were held, strategies debated, and contingency plans drafted. Some proposed immediate rescue missions, while others suggested a more cautious approach, studying the situation from a distance before committing resources. Military strategists weighed potential threats, while scientists argued for diplomacy and understanding. The delicate balance between caution and action dominated every discussion. Meanwhile, ordinary people continued their daily lives, unaware of the critical decisions being made on their behalf. Amid all this, the observatory team remained at the center of attention. Their discovery had made them public figures overnight, and they were suddenly responsible for advising governments and space agencies on how to proceed. They debated internally about the morality of intervening. Should humans risk everything to help an unknown species, knowing that there could be dangers beyond comprehension? Or should humanity prioritize safety, perhaps ignoring the distress call entirely? No decision seemed perfect, and every choice carried weighty consequences. In the midst of this uncertainty, the signal continued to pulse through space. It was constant, insistent, almost pleading. It was a reminder that somewhere far away, a life or lives depended on human action. Scientists, journalists, and politicians alike felt the pressure of that knowledge. And yet, there was also excitement. The possibilities of learning from the aliens, their technology, their culture, their very existence were unprecedented. Humanity stood on the brink of a new era, where knowledge and danger were intertwined. As days turned into nights, the story unfolded like a suspenseful drama. People across the world followed every update, every scientific analysis, every message sent in response. Citizens debated online forums and social media platforms, discussing the moral, ethical, and practical considerations of responding to the call. In quiet homes, children asked their parents what it meant to encounter beings from another world. The collective imagination of humanity was captured in a way that hadn't been for decades. For the astronomers who first detected the signal, the experience was overwhelming. They were no longer observers of the universe, they were participants in a story that would define human history. They experienced pride, fear, excitement, and exhaustion, all at once. Every new piece of data brought both hope and uncertainty. The SOS signal was more than a call for help, it was a mirror, reflecting humanity's own curiosity, courage, and the ever-present tension between caution and ambition. And so, the stage was set. Humanity stood at the threshold of the unknown. A signal from the distant darkness of space had pierced the quiet of Earth, calling out for help and challenging humans to respond. No one could yet predict what would happen next. Would humans act with compassion and intelligence, or would mistakes and miscalculations turn a rescue mission into a disaster? The answer remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Everything was about to change. The quiet night skies, once a symbol of infinite distance, were now alive with potential, danger, and the promise of something far beyond the imagination of humankind. The moment humanity confirmed that the signal was real, a new wave of urgency swept across the globe. Scientists, engineers, politicians, and military strategists were suddenly thrown into action. The world, which had once looked at the stars with quiet curiosity, now faced a decision that could change the course of history. The SOS was not just a strange pattern of signals, it was a desperate plea for help, sent across unimaginable distances by beings whose existence was now undeniable. The question everyone asked was simple, yet terrifying. How should humanity respond? International space agencies began collaborating, forming an unprecedented alliance. For decades, nations had competed in space exploration, but now the stakes were higher than ever. The goal was no longer about prestige or scientific achievement alone. It was about answering a call for help from another intelligent species. Teams were assembled to study the signal more closely, to understand the technology behind it, and to figure out how to make contact without triggering danger. Every detail mattered. Every mistake could cost lives not just of humans, but potentially of the aliens themselves. The SOS signal was intricate. Scientists noticed that the pattern was rhythmic, almost musical, but embedded within it were complex codes that hinted at advanced technology. It was clear that these beings were intelligent, far more advanced than humanity in certain areas. They had designed their communication system to be resilient and precise, ensuring it could travel across the vast emptiness of space without losing integrity. Decoding it required the cooperation of the world's brightest minds, and even then there were gaps in understanding. Every message they sent back had to be calculated carefully, anticipating how it might be interpreted by the aliens. The more humanity studied the signal, the more complex it appeared. There were layers of information, some of which seemed like warnings hidden within the plea for help. Linguists, mathematicians, and physicists worked together, trying to discern whether the aliens were expressing distress purely, or if there were conditions and limitations buried in the signal. Each new discovery raised new questions. Were the aliens in immediate danger? Was the SOS a trap? Were they vulnerable? Or were they testing humanity in some way? The possibilities were endless, and the tension grew as days stretched into nights filled with endless calculations, simulations, and debates. While the scientific teams worked, governments faced political dilemmas. Every nation wanted to play a role, but there was also fear of what might happen if humanity acted too quickly. Military strategists warned that sending spacecraft without understanding the aliens' intentions could provoke conflict. Ethical committees argued that if intelligent life truly needed help, it was humanity's duty to respond. And then there were the practical concerns. The spacecraft capable of traveling deep space were limited. The technology required for rescue missions had never been tested beyond Earth orbit, and communication across such vast distances was slow and uncertain. Every plan had risks, but inaction carried its own dangers, both moral and strategic. As the world debated, a smaller specialized team was formed to lead the actual contact effort. These were engineers, astronauts, and diplomats chosen not only for their technical skills, but also for their ability to make split-second decisions under pressure. They began studying every possible scenario: how to approach the alien vessel safely, how to communicate clearly without misinterpretation, what contingency plans should be in place if the aliens reacted aggressively, or if the ship's systems were unstable. They ran simulations for weeks, testing countless variables and trying to predict outcomes that no human had ever faced before. Meanwhile, the general public was swept up in a wave of fascination. News outlets broadcast updates around the clock, and social media exploded with theories, speculations, and debates. People everywhere felt the tension and the excitement. Schools used the event as a teaching moment, with teachers discussing astronomy, physics, and the ethics of first contact. Families gathered to look at the night sky, imagining the distant vessel drifting silently in the dark expanse, sending out its lonely call. For humanity, it felt like the start of a new era, an adventure that had begun not with a launch or a mission, but with a plea for help from beings far beyond the reaches of Earth. As preparations continued, the specialized team worked to establish a communication protocol. Every message they planned to send had to be precise and carefully structured. They developed universal mathematical patterns, sequences of light and radio waves, and symbolic representations designed to convey meaning without assuming shared language or culture. They debated endlessly whether to include information about humanity's location, its technological capabilities, and its intentions. Could the aliens understand human morality? Could they grasp the nuances of Earth's history? These questions haunted every decision. Yet, even as humanity prepared to respond, a subtle fear lingered. The aliens' SOS was a sign of vulnerability, but vulnerability could also mask danger. What if the ship was damaged in a way that made it unstable or volatile? What if the distress signal was a lure, designed to draw humans into a trap? This uncertainty added a layer of tension to every action. Scientists and strategists knew they had to balance compassion with caution. One wrong move could ignite conflict, endanger human lives, or cause irreparable damage to the aliens themselves. The stakes were higher than anything humanity had ever faced, and the team felt the weight of responsibility pressing on them with every passing hour. The team also had to consider the technical challenges of approaching the alien ship. Even assuming the SOS was genuine, the vessel was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. It drifted in a region of space with unknown gravitational forces, potentially hazardous radiation, and technology that might be entirely incompatible with human systems. Engineers had to design remote probes, automated drones, and monitoring systems to study the ship from a safe distance. Every maneuver had to be calculated to the smallest fraction of a second, ensuring that nothing would go wrong in the delicate process of establishing contact as humanity moved closer to action. Internal conflicts arose within the team. Some members advocated immediate intervention, arguing that delay could worsen the aliens' condition or even result in their loss. Others called for patience, insisting that understanding the situation fully was more important than acting impulsively. Debates became heated, with each side presenting compelling arguments. It was a test not just of intellect, but of character, of the ability to weigh risk, responsibility, and morality when faced with unprecedented circumstances. Despite the disagreements, a consensus emerged. Humanity would attempt to help, but with extreme caution. The first step was remote observation, sending carefully coded responses to gauge the aliens' reactions. Using a combination of radio waves, laser signals, and simulated transmissions, the team tried to communicate basic concepts. They meant no harm, they wished to assist, and they were paying attention. The aliens' responses, subtle but detectable, provided the first glimpse into their intelligence and emotional state. It became clear that this was indeed a call for help, and that the beings on board were not hostile, at least not initially. As preparations continued, the world watched with bated breath. Media coverage intensified, turning the mission into a global event. Children drew pictures of the aliens and their ship. Scientists published papers speculating on the technology behind the SOS. Philosophers debated the implications for humanity's place in the universe. Even ordinary citizens felt the significance of the moment. For the first time, humans were not just observers of the cosmos, they were participants in a story unfolding across the stars. The alien vessel itself remained a mystery. Initial scans suggested it was enormous, with a design unlike anything human engineers could imagine. It seemed to hover silently in space, almost as if it were waiting patiently for a response. The SOS had traveled vast distances, surviving the cold, emptiness, and interference of the universe, and now it had reached the eyes and minds of humanity. The very act of receiving and interpreting the signal made humans acutely aware of their vulnerability and their responsibility. It was a reminder that the universe was immense, complex, and filled with unknown possibilities. Every day, as scientists and engineers worked, the tension increased. Would the aliens accept help? Would they understand humanity's intentions? Would the first interaction be peaceful or catastrophic? The uncertainty created a sense of collective suspense, a feeling shared by people across continents. It was a rare moment when the world seemed united in focus, staring at the night sky and imagining what might come next. In that anticipation, hope and fear existed side by side, each fueling the other. And so, humanity stood on the edge of a new chapter in its history. The SOS signal had shifted everything from scientific inquiry to global politics, from imagination to reality. It was no longer a distant possibility that intelligent life existed beyond Earth. It was a concrete, urgent presence, reaching across light years with a simple but profound request: help us. How humanity would respond would define not only the fate of the alien vessel, but also the story of Earth itself. As the days turned into weeks, humanity's preparations to approach the alien vessel became more intense. Scientists, engineers, and astronauts worked around the clock, testing simulations, analyzing data, and preparing for a delicate operation that had never been attempted before. While earlier phases had involved observation and communication from afar, this stage required action. Humans were now close enough to the alien ship to see its structure, study its energy signatures, and detect subtle movements that hinted at internal activity. For the first time, the mysterious vessel was no longer just a signal on a monitor. It was a real, tangible presence in space, looming with unknown intentions. The specialized team assigned to make contact faced immense pressure. They were not only responsible for human safety but also for the potential survival of the aliens themselves. Every maneuver had to be calculated with extreme precision. Even the slightest miscalculation could trigger catastrophic consequences. A collision, a misfired probe, or an unintended signal could provoke an alien reaction that humanity could not predict or control. Every decision became a life-or-death matter, and the weight of responsibility hung heavily on the team's shoulders. As humans inched closer, they discovered that the alien ship was far more complex than anticipated. Initial scans had suggested a simple structure designed for long-distance travel, but detailed analysis revealed intricate systems that were both advanced and fragile. The vessel appeared to operate with multiple layers of automation, with redundancies designed to protect against external threats. Yet, despite the sophistication, there were clear signs of distress: damaged hull sections, erratic energy fluctuations, and irregular communication bursts. It was evident that the ship's situation was more critical than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, the aliens themselves began to realize that their situation was precarious. While sending an SOS had been their desperate attempt to call for help, they did not anticipate that humans would respond so effectively. The aliens were intelligent and cautious, but they had underestimated humanity's persistence, ingenuity, and courage. Their initial confidence gave way to anxiety as they watched human probes and signals probe their systems. What had seemed like a routine call for assistance now carried unintended consequences. Humans were not merely observing, they were learning, adapting, and preparing to act. The critical moment arrived when the first unmanned human drones approached the vessel. Designed for careful study, the drones sent back real-time data that stunned the scientists on Earth. The alien technology was extraordinary, unlike anything humanity had encountered. Its propulsion system operated on principles only theorized in human physics, and its communication network was multidimensional, allowing messages to be sent and received almost instantaneously across vast distances. Yet, within these remarkable systems lay vulnerabilities, flaws that humans, with patience and careful observation, were able to detect. These flaws, once discovered, provided humanity with unexpected leverage in what was rapidly becoming a tense situation. The aliens reacted as humans approached. Initial signals indicated confusion and alarm. The ship's automated defenses began to activate, small energy shields flickering into existence, and sensor arrays adjusting to monitor the human drones. It became clear that the SOS, while intended as a plea for help, had inadvertently revealed weaknesses the aliens had hoped to keep hidden. Panic spread aboard their vessel, a mixture of fear and frustration. They had intended to solicit assistance, but instead, their vulnerability had exposed them to a species capable of acting decisively. The realization that they had underestimated humanity was both humbling and terrifying. On Earth, the human team faced their own critical decisions. They now had the ability to influence the situation directly. They could neutralize certain hazards aboard the alien ship, stabilize damaged systems, and guide the vessel toward safety. But every action carried risk. Misinterpreting an alien response could provoke hostility. Activating a repair protocol in the wrong sequence could trigger cascading failures. The team had to rely on intuition, experience, and real-time analysis. making choices under pressure that could determine the outcome of the first of a direct encounter with extraterrestrial intelligence. Communication became a central challenge. While humans had developed sophisticated methods to convey intentions safely, the aliens were now sending mixed signals, pleas for help intertwined with defensive posturing. Humans had to decipher this complex web of communication, balancing the need to act with the need to ensure that the aliens understood their intentions. Every new transmission was analyzed, cross-referenced, and interpreted in multiple ways to avoid mistakes. The atmosphere in the control rooms on Earth was tense. Every beep, flicker, and data spike demanded immediate attention. As the situation escalated, the stakes became higher. Small probes sent to stabilize the ship encountered unexpected obstacles in energy fields, malfunctioning doors, and erratic gravitational shifts. The team quickly realized that the vessel's systems were highly interconnected, meaning that a change in one area could have unintended consequences elsewhere. They had to act like surgeons, precise and careful, with the understanding that even minor errors could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, the aliens were watching every movement, their behavior increasingly erratic as they struggled to maintain control of their failing systems. The tension reached a climax when one of the drones made a critical observation. The vessel's core energy module, the heart of its systems, was on the verge of instability. If it failed, the entire ship could be destroyed, taking with it the lives of its occupants. The human team recognized that this was the defining moment. They had to act quickly, using every bit of knowledge and technology at their disposal. Engineers proposed a daring maneuver, a coordinated intervention that would stabilize the module remotely, without physically entering the ship. It was risky. Failure could trigger the exact disaster they were trying to prevent, but it was the only option. As the operation began, tension gripped the world. Scientists monitored data streams, technicians executed commands with surgical precision, and military advisors stood ready in case any contingency required immediate action. For the first time, humanity's ingenuity and courage were tested on a cosmic stage. The aliens, aware of the intervention, reacted with a mix of fear and resistance. Automated defense systems activated more aggressively. Energy pulses emitted from the vessel in what appeared to be defensive gestures. Humans had to respond delicately, countering these measures while ensuring they did not cause further harm. Time seemed to stretch. Every second felt like an eternity as the stabilization process unfolded. Human drones moved in precise patterns, guided by complex algorithms and real-time adjustments. Energy readings fluctuated, alarms sounded, and data poured in at overwhelming rates. Scientists interpreted each signal, recalibrating their approach to counter unexpected variables. The alien ship, once a distant, enigmatic object, was now a dynamic battlefield of intellect, technology, and survival. Finally, after what felt like hours, the stabilization succeeded. The critical energy module began to stabilize, and the ship's systems returned to a functional state. The aliens, initially panicked and defensive, gradually relaxed as they realized that the humans had acted to preserve, not harm. The immediate danger had passed, but the encounter left both species profoundly changed. Humans had demonstrated their ingenuity and courage, while the aliens had been forced to confront the reality that their SOS had inadvertently exposed their vulnerabilities. The experience was transformative. On Earth, the team celebrated their success, but there was little time for relief. They knew that this was only the beginning. The critical moment had shown humanity's capabilities, but it had also revealed the complexity and unpredictability of direct interaction with an advanced extraterrestrial species. Every lesson learned during this phase would inform future actions, shaping the delicate balance of trust, caution, and cooperation. The aliens, too, were affected deeply. They had believed their SOS would summon aid, but it had instead revealed the strengths and determination of humanity. They had underestimated the resourcefulness of the species reaching across the void to assist them. The realization that humans could act decisively, even under unprecedented conditions, left the aliens both humbled and cautious. From their perspective, this first encounter had been a trial, testing the limits of their understanding and assumptions about other intelligent life. In the aftermath of this critical moment, both species had gained insight. Humans understood the stakes of interstellar interaction, the importance of precision, and the consequences of mistake. The aliens recognized that their perception of humans as inexperienced and reactive was entirely incorrect. Humanity was capable, innovative, and unpredictable. The encounter created a foundation for cautious collaboration, built on mutual awareness of capabilities, vulnerabilities, and intent. The rising challenge of reaching the alien vessel had escalated into a full-blown critical moment, where every decision mattered and every action had far-reaching consequences. Humanity had faced uncertainty, danger, and ethical dilemmas, yet had emerged with both technical success and a profound understanding of interspecies dynamics. The aliens, while initially frightened, had learned that their assumptions could be challenged, and that even a species they underestimated could act decisively to preserve life. That as the dust settled, the world watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The story of the SOS, the approach, and the stabilization operation spread rapidly. capturing the imagination of millions. Humanity had not only proven its technological capabilities but had also shown that courage, intelligence and careful planning could bridge the gap between worlds. The events of this phase marked the transition from observation and preparation to direct interaction and consequence, a moment where curiosity, bravery, and ingenuity collided in the vast expanse of space, forever changing the relationship between humans and the unknown. After the intense critical moments, humanity now faced the most delicate phase of the encounter, the resolution. The alien vessel, which had drifted silently through the void for untold distances, was stabilized but still vulnerable. The team on Earth, along with the specialists monitoring the situation from orbit, realized that this was their chance to turn a dangerous and unpredictable situation into an opportunity for understanding, collaboration, and survival. The stakes were higher than ever. One wrong move, and everything could spiral into catastrophe, undoing the progress humanity had fought so hard to achieve. The first step in the resolution process was to establish a clearer line of communication. The initial SOS had been fragmented and chaotic, partially due to the alien ship's damaged systems. Humans now used advanced algorithms to decode the alien language fully, translating patterns, pulses, and sequences into understandable concepts. Every signal they sent back was carefully constructed to convey intentions, reassurance, and a willingness to assist without threatening the alien crew. This required immense patience. Even a minor misstep could be interpreted as aggression, which could trigger defensive actions from the aliens, risking both the mission and the lives involved. While communication progressed, a plan was developed to physically stabilize and repair parts of the alien vessel. Human engineers, using robotic drones and remote-controlled repair units, began to perform critical maintenance. The alien technology was unlike anything humans had ever encountered, with systems operating on principles that required careful observation and improvisation. It was a trial of intellect and creativity, as engineers had to adapt Earth technology to interface with unknown alien systems. Every adjustment was double-checked and triple-checked, ensuring that the actions would improve the situation rather than make it worse. As humans intervened, the aliens observed cautiously. Their initial panic and fear had subsided somewhat, replaced by a mixture of curiosity, caution, and grudging admiration. They watched as humans navigated their complex systems, repairing damage and stabilizing critical modules. Despite differences in physiology, technology, and communication style, the aliens began to recognize a key truth. Humans were not reckless. They were deliberate, intelligent, and capable of problem-solving in ways that even the aliens had not anticipated. This realization marked a turning point in the interaction. As the initial fear transformed into a tentative understanding, the stabilization operation was meticulous and painstaking. Humans had to correct energy fluctuations, repair damaged power conduits, and ensure the structural integrity of the vessel. Every drone movement, every signal sent, and every adjustment made was monitored in real time. Engineers on Earth coordinated with specialists in orbit, exchanging information instantaneously to adapt to unforeseen complications. For example, one section of the ship's propulsion network began to exhibit irregular energy surges, threatening to destabilize the vessel entirely. Human engineers quickly analyzed the patterns, identified the cause, and implemented a solution that restored stability. These moments required not only technical skill but also calm under pressure, as a single miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. While the technical aspects unfolded, the human team also worked to foster trust. They realized that success was not only a matter of repairing the ship but also of reassuring the alien crew. They transmitted carefully constructed messages explaining their actions, their intentions, and their understanding of the aliens' predicament. Initially, the aliens responded with caution, sending signals that combined curiosity with wariness. Humans interpreted these signals carefully, adjusting their approach to demonstrate goodwill without overstepping boundaries. This delicate dance required empathy, patience, and constant attention to the subtle cues being transmitted across space. The turning point came when humans managed to gain partial control over some of the alien ship's systems, not to dominate, but to prevent further damage. For example, certain automated safety protocols had been malfunctioning, threatening to shut down life support or critical energy flows. Human teams, after careful observation and simulation, were able to intervene remotely, stabilizing these systems and restoring a measure of normalcy. The aliens, realizing that the humans' interventions were saving their ship rather than harming it, began to relax. Their signals shifted from cautious monitoring to tentative acknowledgement, opening the door for a more cooperative interaction. Despite this progress, the situation remained tense. The alien vessel's crew was unfamiliar with human technology, and the interface between human drones and alien systems required constant adjustment. Human engineers had to think creatively, improvising solutions in real time to prevent cascading failures. At one point, a critical sensor array began to overload due to incompatible energy feedback. The team quickly recalibrated their drones, using a combination of predictive modeling and intuition to prevent a total system shutdown. The success of these maneuvers reinforced a growing sense of competence and confidence, both among humans and, indirectly, among the alien crew. During the process, a remarkable bond began to form, albeit indirectly. The aliens recognized that humans were not merely opportunistic or aggressive but genuinely interested in preservation and cooperation. Humans, in turn, were fascinated by the aliens' technology, their problem-solving methods, and even their responses to stress and crisis. Though neither species could fully understand the other, there was a mutual acknowledgement of intelligence, capability, and determination. It was a subtle but powerful form of communication that transcended words, signals, or codes of recognition of shared purpose. As the resolution phase continued, humans began to guide the alien vessel toward a safer trajectory. Using precise calculations and carefully monitored propulsion adjustments, they helped the ship navigate toward a stable orbit in a nearby region of space where further repairs could be conducted safely. This was an incredibly delicate operation, as the vessel's damaged systems required constant monitoring to prevent sudden energy surges or destabilization. Engineers worked tirelessly, coordinating with teams around the globe, exchanging information, and adapting their strategy in real time. Each success reinforced the idea that humans could achieve extraordinary results when combining technology and careful planning. Simultaneously, the human team worked to repair communication systems aboard the alien vessel. The SOS had been fragmented, and restoring stable communication was critical not only for continued coordination but also for long-term cooperation. Engineers used a combination of adaptive algorithms, signal amplification, and careful timing to rebuild the alien systems, piece by piece. Slowly, the vessel regained full functionality, and the aliens were able to send clearer responses. What had begun as a desperate call for help evolved into a two-way interaction, a fragile but meaningful dialogue between species, separated by light years yet united by circumstance. One of the most profound aspects of the resolution was the realization of mutual dependence. The aliens understood that humans had the knowledge and tools necessary to stabilize and repair their vessel. Humans, in turn, realized that the aliens' technology contained insights far beyond Earth's current understanding. Both species were learning from one another, even if indirectly. This reciprocal recognition transformed the interaction from a one-sided rescue mission into a collaborative endeavor, building a foundation for future cooperation and trust. The alien vessel was secure, its systems operational, and its crew no longer in immediate danger. Humanity had demonstrated technical mastery, courage, and diplomacy under pressure, achieving what many had thought impossible. The aliens, though still cautious, had developed a new respect for human ingenuity and resilience. The SOS that had once called out in desperation had triggered a sequence of events that revealed the strengths, creativity, and determination of humanity as species, capable of acting decisively while exercising care and understanding. In practical terms, the resolution marked a turning point. Critical repairs had been completed, the vessel's trajectory had been stabilized, and communication channels were functional. Beyond that, however, it established a precedent for interspecies interaction. The operation showed that, even in extreme circumstances, intelligence, patience, and careful action could bridge the vast differences between species. Humans had not only responded to a call for help but had also demonstrated the qualities that would define future encounters: empathy, adaptability, and problem-solving under pressure. The human team, exhausted but elated, reflected on the experience. They had faced uncertainty, risk, and ethical dilemmas at every step. Each decision required careful thought and courage, yet they had succeeded. For the first time, humanity had interacted with an intelligent extraterrestrial species in a meaningful, impactful way. The resolution of the crisis was not just a technical achievement, it was a milestone in understanding, cooperation, and the demonstration of moral responsibility on a cosmic scale. Meanwhile, the alien crew began to exhibit signs of trust. Their responses became more coordinated and deliberate, indicating an emerging recognition that humans were allies rather than threats. While cultural, physiological, and technological differences remained vast, the fundamental acknowledgement of capability, intent, and cooperation created a new dynamic. What had begun as a desperate plea for help evolved into the first stages of an interstellar partnership. Tentative yet hopeful, the aliens had learned that underestimating humans was a grave error. Both species had gained insight, humans into the complexity and vulnerability of advanced extraterrestrial systems, and aliens into the ingenuity, courage, and adaptability of a species they had scarcely imagined. The SOS had called forth humanity's skill, determination, and compassion, resulting in a resolution that was both technically successful and profoundly symbolic. After the intense events surrounding the alien SOS and humanity's intervention, the world began to reflect on what had just occurred. The crisis that had gripped the globe for weeks was over, yet its consequences were only beginning to reveal themselves. The alien vessel, once drifting silently and vulnerable in the vast expanse of space, had been stabilized thanks to human ingenuity, courage, and careful action. While the immediate danger had passed, the impact of the encounter was profound, leaving humanity with lessons about responsibility, cooperation, and its place in the universe. Across the globe, people slowly began to understand the significance of the events. News outlets recounted the story with AEW, describing how a small team of astronomers first detected the SOS and how engineers, scientists, and astronauts worked tirelessly to respond. Social media and online forums buzzed with discussion, speculation, and admiration. Children drew pictures of the alien ship, imagining what life might look like on board. For many, the incident was a moment of pride, proof that humans could rise to challenges no one had faced before. But there was also a sobering awareness. The universe was full of unknowns, and humanity had only glimpsed a fraction of its vast, complex reality. For the scientific community, the encounter became an unprecedented learning opportunity. Researchers studied every detail of the alien vessel's systems, decoding aspects of its technology that had never been seen before. Engineers marveled at the alien propulsion systems, which operated on principles that had only been theorized by humans. Communication experts analyzed the methods by which the SOS had been transmitted, and how the aliens' responses evolved over time. Every discovery prompted new questions, sparking projects, experiments, and theories that would occupy researchers for years, perhaps decades. Humanity had gained knowledge that could accelerate technological progress exponentially, but it also carried a responsibility to use that knowledge wisely. Meanwhile, the alien crew began to process what had happened. Initially overwhelmed by panic and fear, they had witnessed humans respond with precision, intelligence, and care. The SOS that had once been a simple cry for help had inadvertently revealed the aliens' vulnerabilities. Yet humans had used that insight not for domination, but to preserve life. The aliens, while still cautious, developed a newfound respect for humanity. They recognized that humans were capable of adaptability, courage, and decision-making under pressure. This respect was subtle but significant, laying the foundation for trust in future interactions. Governments and international organizations also reflected on the implications of the encounter. Policies regarding space exploration, interstellar communication, and extraterrestrial engagement were immediately reviewed. The incident highlighted the importance of global cooperation, as no single nation could have managed the response alone. Collaborative efforts had proven successful, demonstrating that humanity's survival and growth in space depended not only on technological capability, but also on coordination, communication, and shared responsibility. These lessons would influence space policies and strategies for generations to come. On a personal level, the scientists, engineers, and astronauts who had been at the heart of the mission experienced profound change. Many described a sense of awe and humility, recognizing the enormity of what they had accomplished. They had faced uncertainty, high stakes, and ethical dilemmas, yet their actions had saved lives and forged a bridge between species. Some reflected on the courage it had required to act decisively, even when the outcome was unknown. Others marveled at the ingenuity of humans, realizing that their collective knowledge, creativity, and determination had made what seemed impossible possible. Public perception also shifted. Humanity's response to the alien SOS became a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and moral responsibility. People around the world recognized that humans had risen to a challenge that was both unprecedented and terrifying. The story inspired literature, art, and philosophical discussion, capturing the imagination of millions. It sparked debates about ethics, responsibility, and the potential consequences of future encounters with extraterrestrial life. For the first time, the universe felt close, tangible, and filled with possibilities that humans could influence rather than merely observe. The encounter also prompted reflection on the nature of humanity itself. The SOS had revealed not just the aliens' vulnerability, but also humanity's strengths, compassion, ingenuity, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. Humans had demonstrated a capacity for empathy, even across the vast distances and fundamental differences between species. This realization prompted discussions about what it meant to be human in the broader context of the cosmos. Philosophers, scientists, and ordinary people alike wondered how humanity could live up to the standards it had just demonstrated, and how those qualities could guide future interactions both on Earth and beyond. Meanwhile, the aliens began to adapt to their new circumstances. They were no longer isolated and vulnerable. Instead, they had established a cautious relationship with humanity. They began to share information about their technology, their understanding of the universe, and their experiences traveling across the stars. While much of this information was difficult for humans to comprehend fully, it provided invaluable insight into advanced engineering, communication, and survival strategies in space. Both species were learning from one another, and the encounter marked the beginning of a slow but meaningful exchange of knowledge. Despite the successful resolution, the incident also highlighted the fragility of life and technology. The alien vessel had come perilously close to disaster, and humans had faced numerous moments where a single error could have led to catastrophe. This awareness instilled a sense of caution and respect for the unknown, reminding humanity that intelligence and courage alone were not enough. They had to be paired with careful observation, patience, and ethical discipline. These lessons would shape humanity's approach to exploration, communication, and conflict in the future. Over time, the SOS became a historic turning point in human history. It was no longer merely a signal from a distant alien vessel. It was a symbol of humanity's capacity for action, cooperation, and ethical responsibility. Schools taught about the event as part of space science curricula. Historians documented the mission as a defining moment, and storytellers used it to inspire new generations. The narrative emphasized that even in the face of fear and uncertainty, humans could act with courage and intelligence, achieving outcomes that were both practical and morally sound. For the alien crew, the experience was transformative as well. They had learned to trust a species they had once underestimated. The SOS had unintentionally tested humanity, revealing its strengths and weaknesses. Through careful observation and interaction, the aliens had gained a more accurate understanding of human capability, ethics, and creativity. This understanding created a foundation for cautious collaboration, allowing for future joint efforts in exploration, communication, and problem-solving. Both species emerged from the encounter with a deeper appreciation of the other, as well as a clearer understanding of their shared responsibilities in a vast and unpredictable universe. The aftermath also prompted a re-evaluation of humanity's role in space. The success of the mission reinforced the idea that humans could actively shape events beyond Earth, rather than being passive observers. It demonstrated the importance of preparedness, adaptability, and courage in facing unknown challenges. The immediate crisis was over. The alien vessel floated safely, its systems functioning, and its crew alive and aware of the humans' capabilities. Humans had not only saved the vessel but had also established the foundation for future interaction, a framework built on trust, competence, and mutual respect. The resolution had turned potential disaster into opportunity, danger into achievement, and an unknown SOS into a historic demonstration of humanity's intelligence and courage. Governments and space agencies invested more in advanced technology, simulation training, and international cooperation, understanding that future encounters, whether with extraterrestrial life or natural cosmic phenomena, would require the same combination of intelligence, care, and decisiveness. At the individual level, the encounter left lasting impressions on those who had directly participated. Many reported a heightened sense of purpose, feeling that they had contributed to a moment in history that would be remembered for centuries. The intense experience fostered camaraderie, trust, and shared pride among the teams involved. They had faced uncertainty, danger, and ethical dilemmas, yet had emerged with success. Their reflections emphasized the importance of humility, foresight, and collaboration, qualities that would guide them and humanity in future endeavors. Society at large also internalized the lessons. The SOS story became a case study in human ingenuity, resilience, and moral responsibility. People discussed the ethical implications of interacting with unknown intelligent life, debated the best practices for interstellar communication, and explored the potential for collaboration across species. The incident served as a reminder that humanity's actions, even in the vastness of space, could have profound consequences, not just for themselves, but for other intelligent beings. It reinforced the need for careful, deliberate, and ethical decision-making in all endeavors, both terrestrial and cosmic. As time passed, the alien vessel gradually recovered from its ordeal. Guided and monitored by humans, its systems were fully operational, and it began to navigate space more confidently. No longer at the mercy of damage and instability, the aliens, while still cautious, had begun to share insights about their technology, navigation methods, and understanding of the universe. This exchange, though limited, was the first step toward a new era of interspecies collaboration, built on trust, respect, and shared experience. The SOS, which had initially seemed like a simple cry for help, had become the catalyst for an unprecedented dialogue between two intelligent species. Ultimately, humanity reflected not just on the success of the mission, but on the profound moral and philosophical lessons it offered. The SOS had tested humanity's courage, ingenuity, and ethical judgment. Humans had risen to the challenge, acting decisively, thoughtfully, and compassionately. The encounter demonstrated that even in the vast, indifferent expanse of space, intelligence, creativity, and moral responsibility could shape outcomes and foster understanding. The story of the SOS became a touchstone for future generations, a reminder that humanity's true strength lay not only in technology or knowledge but in the ability to act wisely, ethically, and courageously when faced with the unknown. The aftermath of the encounter left both species forever changed. Humanity had proven its capabilities and established a reputation as a species worthy of respect, while the aliens had learned to trust a species they had once underestimated. The SOS had called forth humanity's wrath in a controlled, constructive way, revealing the determination, intelligence, and compassion that defined humans. It was a moment of reflection, growth, and possibility, a turning point that would echo through the histories of both species, shaping their future interactions and inspiring generations to come.